Being blind is, I use the word complicated, right? Some people, quote unquote, struggle with it. Other people, it's a minor inconvenience. Everybody views it differently, and not to be punny, but everybody views it differently. It's a perspective, right? We live life with, like you said, expectations of society. And what I try to encourage people to say is don't worry what other people think, worry about what you think, and put in front of you things that you can achieve. Don't worry about who set the bar for you. Don't worry about, well, my parents want me to do this, or my husband or wife wants me to do this. Don't worry about what other people want you to do. Make a decision for yourself.
You're listening to Inside Out, a podcast about living well with low vision. Maybe you're feeling confused, scared, isolated, or disheartened about a recent vision loss diagnosis. Or maybe you've been managing your vision loss for a while, and now you want to hear from others about how to continue growing and thriving. Inside Out is your supportive space to find healthy and impactful tools to build and maintain a truly rich and gratifying life with low or no vision. I'm Matthew Reeves. I'm a legally blind psychotherapist and rehabilitation counselor. I specialize in helping people adjust to disability through my practice, Integral Mental Health Services in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm really glad you're listening. Please subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and let others in the low vision community know about the podcast so the word can spread to those who might find it helpful. And now, on with today's discussion. Today I'm talking with Meredyth Mason, who lives with retinitis pigmentosa. What makes Meredyth's story particularly compelling is that she wasn't diagnosed until her early 30s, after living what she calls a quote-unquote normal life, marriage, kids, career, until night driving became difficult and she started noticing missing letters on her computer screen. Her journey took her from a devastating diagnosis with no support or resources offered through 2 years of crippling depression to eventually building a rich, active life that includes entrepreneurship, adaptive sports, traveling on month-long cruises, and navigating the world with her guide dog. Meredyth's perspective on rebuilding life after vision loss, finding your own definition of success, and the differences between being alone and being lonely offer valuable insights for anyone facing major life changes. Thanks, Meredyth, for being here. I'm excited to talk to you about your personal perspectives on vision loss and your story. Why don't we just jump right into it? If you could give us a sense of your vision condition and the story of how you got diagnosed and kind of your timeline, I find that's really useful to kind of set that context, and then we can get into the details of your story in a bit.
Sounds great. I'm so happy to be here, Matthew. Thank you for the invitation. Hey, everybody. My name's Meredyth Mason. I'm a 52-year-old woman. I live in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. So my vision journey is super interesting. It's quite different than a lot of people's who have retinitis pigmentosa, which is the diagnosis that I have. Retinitis pigmentosa is actually the leading cause of blindness in children. However, I didn't get diagnosed until I was in my early 30s. So I was living that quote unquote normal life, right? You go to school, you meet someone, you get married, you get the job, you have the kids, you do all that cool, fun, quote unquote, like I said, regular stuff. And then I started noticing some strange difficulty driving at night. That was kind of the start of it, right? Like in my late 20s, I was like, wow, I almost hit that trash can, or I missed the driveway. And that was the beginning of it, right? That was the first thing I noticed. Then as I was working, and like many people, use the computer a lot, I started noticing in words, letters were missing. And I was like, oh no, what is that? So I called my mom and I said, Mom, something's up. She says, maybe you have a retinal detachment. You need to go to the doctor immediately. So I went
Okay.
to the doctor and, they said they didn't really see anything. And I said, well, something's going on there. So I actually moved from Florida to Georgia.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I actually was probably your neighbor, by the way. This is, like I said, 20 something years ago, or actually, yeah, 20 something years ago. And I went to a new doctor. And I shared with him the same symptoms. So he looked into my eyes and he says, I think I see something in there. I'm like, what is it? He's like, I think you have a cataract. And I said, wait,
Oh,
I'm 32 years old. Why would I have cataracts? Like, not to be punny, funny, whatever. Cataracts are for old people, right?
right, right.
Like, I'd never heard of a 32-year-old with cataracts. He says, yeah, you have a small cataract. He says, I'm going to refer you to Emory University. And I was like, oh, great. Okay, they're one of the best hospitals in the world. Cool. So I go to Emory. I meet with actually a doctor who was the front of the eye, right? Corneal specialist, not a retinal specialist.
Right.
And he's looking in there and he's looking a little longer than I was comfortable with. And I was like, something's up because nobody looks for like 5 minutes. And he
Right,
finally
right.
steps back,
That's worrying.
right? It's like too long. And he's like, okay, I don't know how to tell you this, but I see these black pigments on your retina. Even though he's a corneal specialist, he's looking at the entire eye, of course. And
Right.
I said, what is that? And he says, I'm pretty sure it's a condition called retinitis pigmentosa. I said, again, I'm 32 years old, never heard of that in my entire life. And
Right.
my entire family has vision issues. We all have, the nearsightedness and the glaucoma and the pretty traditional eye issues. And he said to me exactly what I started the podcast with. It is the leading cause of blindness in children. And then again, I'm confused. I'm like, I'm 32 years old. I'm certainly not a child anymore. He says, well, sometimes it can manifest later in life. I said, okay. And then he says, but you're going to go blind from this. And I just lost it. Started crying. I was like,
Sure.
having a panic attack. And I was like, oh my goodness. So anyway, he says, I'm going to refer you to the retinal specialist here at Emory. And we're going to send you home and we'll get that appointment going. That appointment was 3 weeks later. And I was
Mm.
like, you can't leave me in this 3 week window of not knowing this terrible diagnosis. He says, we can't get you in any sooner. I was like, oh, I was so devastated. So anyway, I call my husband, I cry to him, I call my mother, I cry to her, I get home, I wait that 3 weeks. That was the worst 3 weeks of my life. I go back to Emory, and the retinal specialist, she confirmed I had retinitis pigmentosa. Oof, right? The worst news you ever heard in your life, that someone tells
Yeah.
you, you're going to go blind, there's nothing that we can do to help you, and we'll see you back in 6 months. So that was kind of the
At
beginning of the
that point,
journey.
were any resources offered at any level, or was it just sort of, I mean, that story that keeps coming up and as I talk to
Mm-hmm.
people and in my own practice, like it's that story of here you go, here's the life-changing
Yep,
diagnosis, see you in a year, and that's all you get. Did you get any,
literally.
did this, yeah, nothing.
Nope, nothing. All
How
she
did
did was
you,
offer me a, oh, go ahead.
how did you handle that, that complete lack of support in that moment? What happened for you?
So I fell into the deepest depression you can imagine. Right? Again,
Mm.
I'm 32 years old. I'm a wife. I'm a mom to two very small children, 3.5 and 18 months at the time. And I had this full-time, really high-level job, and just, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't be a spouse. I couldn't take care of my children. I couldn't take care of myself. There were days I just laid in the bed and cried and rocked and sobbed and everything that you could think of that was like the biggest blow of your entire life. So it was pretty terrible.
I'm sorry you went through that.
Thank
How
you.
clearly some things changed between then and now because you're not in that place anymore. I can tell. What
Absolutely.
what was how long did that last, and how did you climb out of that?
I'd say it took about 2 years. And I know that sounds like forever. It felt like forever, by the way. And again,
Yeah.
I am very strong. I am a very I'm like a force of nature, right? People tell me all the time, I'm smart, I'm resourceful, I'm a go-getter, I'm like a tiger, right? But at that time, I felt none of those things. It just, I don't know, like one day I just snapped out of it. It's kind of like the weirdest thing to say, but literally I just woke up one day and said, I'm done crying. This is not, this is not productive. So I kind of
Oh,
got
let
it
me ask. I want to
together.
ask a question about
Yeah,
that. And
sure.
this, and
Absolutely.
I'm gonna see if I can figure out how to phrase this question because it's subtle.
Absolutely.
I'm curious about, did that change? Did you just discover that your mindset had shifted and you ran with it, or was that a conscious decision to say, okay, I am going to decide now that this is the day that something's different? Was it intentional, or did it feel more passive?
I think it was intentional, honestly. Like, I'm kind of funny about decisions in my life. I'll sometimes stew on something for days or weeks or months, and then all of a sudden a day happens and I go, today's the day, let's go. So I think I am
Wow.
very intentional with my decisions, and I never look back. When I make a decision, I'm confident with that decision and I just go forward.
Wow. I hear that, and what strikes me is how you went from a place of feeling like you had no resources, no
Hmm.
motivation, no agency, no capacity to even be yourself, much less
Exactly.
a wife or a mother or anything like, but and
Exactly.
then you made a choice. You
Hmm.
claimed agency, you demanded agency, and it started
Yes.
from within.
Hmm.
And that was the change of everything. And you got your little lion got her claws back.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
That's
honestly, part of
remarkable.
it, yeah, thank you. Part of it was the love of family, right? I'm not going to
Mm,
lie and say that there was no support. Support wasn't local, though. There wasn't like a mom or a sibling or something like that nearby. Everybody lived far away. But what I did was, like you said, I took agency because I'm a full believer that my father is the source of my motivation. Unfortunately, he's passed away a long time ago, but I carry him with me constantly. I look in the mirror and I see him looking back at me. And it was
mm,
conversations with my dad, who he himself was suffering with Parkinson's disease. He was living with a very debilitating disease. And I said to myself, if my dad can live with a disease that is slowly killing him, this is not killing me. RP does not kill you. RP causes you to have to change your life and do things a little differently. And to see that man push as hard as he did pushed me to push harder.
wow. Wow. You know, a lot of people may be listening to this, or maybe just one person is listening to this, and they're thinking, part one, I don't have that model in my life. Like, I don't
Hmm.
have that dad. I haven't,
Sure.
I've never experienced anything like this. No one around me has experienced anything like this. I don't have that.
Hmm.
And secondly, it is impossible, and probably for you during that early stage of depression too. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would imagine for a lot of us, the idea of a condition like yours or mine requiring a little change doesn't make sense, right? It does feel like the end of the world. It does feel like the end of
It
life, the
does.
end of every opportunity. So my question to you, given those two things, like you're on the other side of it and you did have that
Hmm.
model, what if you were that voice? And right now you kind of are.
Hmm.
You have that opportunity, and so do I. And that's a privilege. Um, what do you want that voice to say to that person who's in that place of despair?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I try to boil things down to the least common denominator. Okay, I could go off and do this whole big tangent about how to do all that, but there's a little piece of advice I was once offered a very long time ago,
What's
and
that?
it's a simple question. How do you eat an elephant? Okay, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
And it's
One
one bite
bite
at
at
a
a
time.
time. Yeah. Is your voice, what do you want your voice to say to them? What do you want that person to hear?
Yeah, and again, I know it is life changing. I know for some people, you have to change everything. Here's the best part. I got this great advice a long time ago from someone who said, it's a simple question. How do you eat an elephant? Right? Kind of funny little thing. Ha ha ha. How do
Right.
you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Right? And I know it's again, it's the least common denominator, but it's food for thought. It's very introspective. We think we have to tackle everything every day. In all
Mm,
honesty, you only have to accomplish one thing in the entire day to have it be a good day. If you can just get up and take a shower, you've accomplished something that day. If you can get up and brush your teeth, you've accomplished something that day. Right? I think we try to say, I have to do these 10 things and call these 10 people and check all my emails and get on Facebook. We put ourselves into this flurry of activity that honestly doesn't need to happen. The reason why I went
mm,
into the deep depression for the 2 years was because I had so much on my plate and there was nobody to help me take stuff off that plate. And then you just drop the plate and it crashes and smashes. So what you do is you make the plate smaller and you take things off the plate that aren't urgent. Obviously, taking care of children is a priority. They can't fend for themselves. And
Right.
simple things, again, like I said, your hygiene. It's not as simple as people think it is. When you're in a deep depression, hygiene's one of the first things that goes.
That's
So if
right.
you can just literally, right, make a list to say, I'm going to get up, I'm going to brush my teeth, I'm going to take a shower, I'm going to put on clean clothes. Again, these are these little elephant bites of progress. So that's my advice there.
Yeah, I'm struck by the how you put that. We hear so often, just focus on the positive, just be positive, and that advice can be very frustrating, right? Because if
Yes,
you're facing something
absolutely.
that feels like the end of the world, like what are you
Mm-hmm.
positive are you going to focus on? And I like how your advice kind of put some tangible feet, something concrete on the so
Mm-hmm.
you can accomplish one thing that's good for you,
Yes.
even just identifying one thing that's good for you and then maybe accomplishing
Yes.
it. That is the positive thing you can focus on. Like it takes the abstract, it
Mm-hmm.
makes it concrete. Maybe the positive thing to focus on is brushing your teeth, and
Yeah.
giving yourself permission to change the expectations that are handed to us from society and culture and family and even our own minds, that those expectations are that you're going to live a life that looks a certain way. But right now, that may be impossible. That may be just too
Exactly.
heavy of a lift. So you're going to the mental gym and you're building a muscle, and the exercise you're doing right now is to not just brush your teeth, but to give yourself some credit for brushing your teeth. That's
Yes.
powerful to me.
Yes. And then if you can make progress the next day and add one more thing, great. And you know what? If the next day isn't good and you didn't brush your teeth, again, that's okay. Like you said,
Yeah.
you have to give yourself permission to have good days and bad days, or just neutral days, right? Not every day is going to be bad or good. Maybe it's just okay. And you know what? Okay is good enough.
So, what are some other areas in your life as you were building those mental muscles, and going from a place of utter despair to where you are now? Like clearly, you learned how to lift a lot, like metaphorical weight there, and
Yes.
now you feel and seem really strong. So one area is hygiene. That makes a lot of sense. That's
Yes,
a
for
starting point
sure.
for a lot of folks. What are some other areas where you started to say, okay, maybe the new task today is in this area or that area? What are the other areas that were important to you?
So again, to keep yourself healthy, right? Because if you don't take care of you first, you can't take care of anything else. Right? This is kind of like a new mom thing that I learned when I had my kids 20 something years ago is if you focus only on the children, guess what? You suffer, the relationship you have suffers, right? So you got to focus on you. You are the
Mm.
priority. So what I started to do was I focused on what was going to make me my best. So obviously the hygiene. Food is a big, big factor for people with low vision and blindness. We have food insecurity. I don't think people realize that,
Yeah.
right? So think about how easy it is to jump in your car, drive to the grocery store, buy those items, get home, prep them, cook them, eat them, clean up after them, store them, etc. Right? Guess what? As a blind person, almost all of that doesn't happen, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
fueling my body and my mind in addition to taking care of my body and my mind became kind of priority number 2. How am I going to get to the grocery store? How am I going to shop? How am I going to get all that stuff home? And again, prep it and put it away and all that. And let me tell you, that was an exercise, right? Most
Yeah.
people take
Yeah.
that for granted, that that's their ate 3 meals a day and it's just, done and they go on with their day. Like they don't have to think about it. We as people with low vision and blindness have to think about what we're eating, how we're going to eat, when we're going to eat. We're going to burn the house down, which I've almost done a couple times. So yeah, food and fuel for my body and my mind became number 2.
Yeah. I think that's such an important point. I like to cook. I enjoy it, and so I get fed a lot of social media about cooking, and one of the things that struck me as you were talking was how much emphasis there is in the digital space about giving
Hmm.
advice to a broad audience who is struggling with that, with exactly what you're describing. How do I meal prep?
Right.
How do I figure out what I'm
Right.
going to cook? How do I not spend all week just figuring out food if food is important to me? And it should be important to
Right.
us. It's our fuel.
Yes.
And you're saying, like, if it's hard for everybody else, imagine how much harder it is for the people who are listening to this podcast, who can't just jump in the car, who can't just read a label, who can't just grab the thing on the shelf at the grocery store without thinking about it, saying, oh, that's what I need, that's what I'm going to get, that's what I'm going to pay for, I'm done.
Exactly.
And then, like, there's 1,000 decision points and 1,000 problems to solve just
Yes.
in the simple act of grocery shopping. And
Hmm.
that was before the days of touchscreen kiosks where you have to check out.
Right.
Like,
Hate those
that is,
things.
I hate them too. That they're terrible. So
Yes.
yeah, to your point, like, such an important thing is so daunting. And so I like that you're saying that's not one task. That's an entire domain of tasks with a
Correct.
thousand questions in it. And we can once again give ourselves permission to solve one of those problems at a time. So it's not so
Correct.
overwhelming. That's great.
Yeah. And if you do Chinese takeout, awesome. Right. Or if you order pizza, great. Right. But these shouldn't be your everyday. A lot of friends of mine in the blind community, will sit there and pop a bag of popcorn and that was dinner. Right. Because it was easy.
Mhm.
You're not cooking anything, so there's no safety issues. Again, you're not worried about burning yourself, cutting yourself, right? You can't measure something properly unless maybe you have a measuring cup that speaks to you. So, yeah, food is definitely number two. I would tell you the next one for me was vices, meaning anything that's not great for you, whether it's alcohol, drugs, smoking, kind of inappropriate behaviors. And sitting down and talking to myself and saying, what are the things that I do that are not good for me? And also, what
Mhm.
are the things that I do that are not good for my eyes? Right? Because my doctor at the time told me that our eyes are a reflection of our health. And if our health is not good, our eyes are not good. And the last thing I wanted to
Yeah.
do was make matters worse, right? I wanted to keep my eyes as healthy as possible. So I
Right.
actually went back to exercising. I had given up sports and exercising, for years because again, you're busy with family and kids and work and this and that, and you stop doing what's best for you. So, yeah, the gym or like walking the dog or just getting outside and moving my body, enjoying the sunshine, and then I really never did the vice thing. I never smoked or drank, and I know a lot of Americans do those things as well as caffeine. I don't do that either. So I removed anything that was a toxin to my body to again
Mhm.
try to treat my body like a temple.
Yeah, and that can apply. I think that idea can apply in the same way, but in other areas as well. Like, what are the toxins in my life? What are the toxins in terms
Hmm.
of what am I watching on television? What am I watching on social
Yes.
media? What am I watching? How am I spending my day? What am I taking in? What are
Correct.
my relationships like? Who am I spending time
Hmm.
with? Are these people healthy and nourishing to me, or
Right.
do I just find myself angry and sad every time I hang out with this person? Like,
Right. Yes.
maybe that's my vice. Maybe there are certain
Yes.
relationships that are a vice. And I'll tell you, as a therapist, I love hearing what you're saying about just moving and being outside is such a protective and nourishing thing for our mental health as well as our physical health. So I think that's so
Absolutely.
important. Um, and yeah, and the relationships too. I can't think of any one thing that's more important for our mental health than our genuine, authentic connection with other people. And
Yes.
a blinding disorder can have profound effects on our ability to be with people. Um,
Yes.
and I'm curious, you said earlier that your close relationships, your support network was all at a distance.
Yes.
Did these efforts to climb out of depression, did that have for you involve finding local supports and building a new kind of support network that looked a little different than it did before?
So I'm a little interesting about support. I'm kind of private about a lot of things. I
Mm.
don't get on social media really and talk about what's going on in my life. My friend network is very small. I could probably count my closest friends on one hand. Honestly, the relationship that I developed, which was always good, but it went from good to skyrocketing fabulous, was my brother.
Oh,
My brother's
wow.
my best friend. He is the human. So just to tell everybody who's listening, so I got divorced through this process too, by the way. So I was
Mm.
diagnosed in 2006, and it really rocked my marriage. There was some other things obviously going on, and marriage is difficult. And if you don't work at it, another thing, right, that is sort of a victim of low vision is if you don't continue to work on it and you're depressed and angry and sad and everything else, your spouse takes that all in. And it just wasn't good and it didn't work out. So not only did I not have the support of a spouse anymore, like I said, friends were far away, other family was far away. I just dug in. I picked one person in my life who loves me unconditionally, if there is unconditional love with humans, and would listen and would be there for me. We started calling each other like half a dozen times a day.
Wow.
And it could just be for 20 seconds, or it could be for 20 minutes, or 2 hours, or whatever. He was there. He was literally my rock, my foundation. And again, it doesn't have to necessarily be a whole pile of people. Now, there's people out there that I know that are involved in their church, or they go to support groups, or they
Sure.
do meetups, right? There's a whole lot of things that other people do. For me, I'm great one on one. I love that one special relationship. Now, I've broadened out since then, of course, but that's what got me through so much. I mean, so much. And he not only helped
Yeah.
me, he helped my children, right? He was there for my
Mm.
kids. I mean, he really did everything and more.
You know, as you described that, it's a reflection of what you said earlier, that you didn't try to build a big support network all at one time. You ate the elephant one bite at
Right.
a time. You found one relationship
Exactly.
that became very important. And I would imagine, you haven't said this, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I imagine building that relationship gave you something, energy, confidence, some asset that helped you build the second relationship, which helped you build the third relationship. I'd love for to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it fostered the confidence, right? Because one of the things that happens with diagnosis is not only are we sad and angry and all those other emotions, but we're also lacking confidence. I am not who I
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
right? And how do you rebuild that and be somebody else, knowing that you're still the same person, but maybe you take on a slightly different persona?
Yeah.
Right. So my brother and I are very different. I'm a super extrovert. He's a super introvert. But what I've learned through my relationship with him is I'm not really a super extrovert anymore. I'm sort of an ambivert, which is a
Yeah.
little hybrid, right? I've become slightly more isolated because of my situation. I'm actually okay with that because with low vision and blindness, we get exhausted quicker, right?
Hmm.
There's so much energy that's put into just basic tasks. Where I used to be out partying and going out to the clubs and dancing and having fun in my youth. I mean, I'll still go out, but I'm not out after 10 o'clock. Right?
Yeah.
I find my quiet time and my quiet space is actually very enjoyable. And this is another piece of advice for people listening. We have to love ourselves and be comfortable with our own company. Okay, this is something that extroverts don't typically do. We need the energy from other people for us to be good.
Hmm.
And introverts, again, turn inward and look for the energy from within. So being an ambivert or moving to ambivert, I had to learn to be comfortable with me. And that also was a process. And that was introspection. That was sitting at home by myself, no distractions, no, like you said, scrolling on Facebook or whatever, or watching TV or listening to music. It was literally just sitting with my thoughts and being happy with that.
You know, you're prompting a thought, and that is like, what is the definition of isolation? Because
Mm-hmm.
we're using that word isolation in that you don't spend a lot of hours, chronological time in the physical presence of other people, but
Correct.
the energy I'm picking up from you and what I hear you describing doesn't sound like isolation. What it sounds like is you are deeply connected with yourself, and you're
Yes.
very comfortable with yourself, which I think isolation when it's paired with depression, and it almost always is, it
Right.
is a sense of disconnection from oneself, and a sense that
Mm-hmm.
I need to move into activities or behaviors that are numbing and disconnecting, whether that's sleep or substances or video games
Right.
or whatever. But it's a fundamental disconnection with oneself, and you're describing a deep engagement with yourself, even if it doesn't involve physical presence in the same room with other people by a large quantity. I don't think that's the definition of isolation. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful that you prompted that idea.
Yeah, we're so used to stimuli, right? We've turned into a society of entertainment. And again, this excessive stimuli. And it's so amazing if you just literally sit back and remove all the stimuli for a moment. One of the things I talk to people about is the difference between lonely and alone,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Again, with that lack of stimulation, people are lonely. And this is when, again, the engagement starts happening. I'm sitting in my room by myself and there's nothing going on. Let me get on, Instagram, or let me, get on a chat room or whatever. It's like,
mhm.
no, no. Why don't you chat with yourself? Why don't you scroll through your own life's achievements, the things you've accomplished, the people who love you, right? The things that you've done with your life, and really think about that. And
Yeah,
that's where
and
you
that
turn from lonely to alone. You can be
yeah,
alone. There's
yes,
nothing wrong with
yes.
being alone, right?
Nothing wrong with alone. Yeah. And I
Hmm.
like even like I think for some people that can sound a little woo woo. It can sound a little daunting. Like what do you want me to do? Meditate? Like I'm not a monk or whatever. But I would encourage people to think like listen to your favorite song and
Sure.
then notice what that song does for you. Notice why it's your favorite. Just ask some questions
It's
about why I'm connected to this song, why I like this
hmm
book, right? Why, and that is engagement with oneself. And if you're doing that,
yes.
you don't have to be lonely. You can be alone without being lonely. That's fantastic. I love it.
Exactly, exactly. And I'll admit it, I'm the first one to get on my phone and look at something or text somebody,
Sure.
but you can't do it 24/7. You have to engage with yourself for some amount of time. And like I said, whether it's your favorite song, heck, when I'm in the shower, I sing, right? I mean, there has to be these joyous moments in life. And it's the whole, what's the line, dance like no one's watching, right?
Right.
And you
Right.
better believe I do that. Not only figuratively, but literally. I
Yeah.
will dance like nobody's watching, right?
That's great. That's great. So talk to me about career. You said you had a career before the diagnosis, and then you had 2 years of crippling depression.
Yes.
What? There's got to be a story there. I'd love to hear it.
Oh, absolutely. So a little bit more background on me. So I have a double master's from University of Maryland. I have a MBA in marketing and a master's in management. So again, the career trajectory was fantastic, right? I had a supportive father who was a CEO of a small company. There was expectations, right? I mean, when you live a little bit of a privileged life, you want to maintain privilege. Nothing wrong with not living that life, of course, but I was very comfortable. So I worked very hard. I was working for a big Fortune 500 company, and like you said, just took a dive, the depression. Now, here's what's interesting. Even though it was crippling, I still pushed through. And people
Mm,
didn't know. Because, like I said, I'm a bit of a private person, or at least I've changed now. I'm more public about my situation. But back then, 20 years ago, nobody knew. I actually hid my diagnosis from people for about 10 years
yeah.
because I still had some functional vision between 2006 and 2016. I was still driving. I was still operating as usual, is what I called it. It wasn't as usual, by the way. It was a daily task to do the same things while losing vision.
Right.
So it's interesting. I kind of put a plan in place and said to myself, okay, I have a short runway now. This is not the next,
Mm,
so again, I was 32. So this is not the next 35 years of my life. This is maybe the next 5 years of my life. So I just hit the gas and I worked like a dog. I worked 18, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week,
oh wow.
churn, burn, go, go, go. I mean, whatever I could do because I was worried about money, as most, again, blind and low vision people are. We're either unemployed, underemployed, don't work at all because we either choose not to or we can't or whatever.
Mhm.
For me, I knew I had the skill set, I knew I had the network, and I just pushed. And then in 2012, so 6 years into diagnosis, I actually retired from corporate America and started my own business. And I find a lot of low vision and blind folks are super entrepreneurial. We love
Yes.
starting our own businesses, right? We can
Yes.
control our domain when we can start our own business.
We don't
And
have
I
to ask for
love teaching.
accommodations from anybody.
Exactly. I love teaching people to monetize your skill. It doesn't
Yes.
matter if you walk a dog, bake cookies, clean houses, whatever you have as a skill. We all have a skill. You learn how to monetize that skill, and then you can support yourself the best that you can. So, but back to your point. So, I started my own business. It was consulting, of course, because that's what I do for a living. I'm a consultant. And I did it for about 4 more years. Then it got to the point where it was really hard. Now I'm legally blind, according to my doctor, which is less than 20 degrees of vision for my condition.
Mhm.
And I just said, oof, I don't think I can do this anymore. It became so exhausting to try to see the computer and work on the phone, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So I actually made the choice to fully retire, and I called it a medical retirement. I didn't just say I retired because people are like, oh, that's great, you're retired. Like, no, it was actually due to a medical condition.
Mhm.
The real issue is I didn't understand that I could get services from Division of Blind Services. I also didn't understand that there was assistive technology or that there were mobility aids. I was unaware because, back to your point about diagnosis, back in 2006, I was told about no resources, nothing. I wasn't even told about
Right.
Division of Blind Services. So the good news is, because I started slowly integrating into the blind community, sort of on the periphery, I started learning from people. Oh, what is Division of Blind Services? Oh, I need to call them. I need to get a computer that works with my situation. And I did. That was the first step in sort of getting back into my employment situation. Now, I did it really slowly. I just did like a little consulting here and there. It was certainly not a full time job. So between 2016, when I retired, and let's see, when was it? 2018, I actually went to work for a community college in just an administrative role, just to keep my mind moving, get me engaged
Mhm.
with other human beings, right? Get out of the house. And I loved it. I was working with high school kids who were transitioning into either four-year university, the community college I worked at, going into the military, or going directly into the workforce. It was
Okay.
amazing, right? Helping people. Oh, the best thing in the world is to help other people, right? Well, then COVID hit. And I know nobody wants to talk about COVID, but I'm actually going to talk about COVID for just a second.
Yeah, bring it.
For right, for people who don't live a life of disability, COVID was the worst thing in the world, right? For someone like myself, and I'm not going to say it was good, it wasn't good, but it changed society's perspective. And it actually gave blind people and people with low vision opportunities to reintegrate into just regular society. We needed our food sent to us, right? We used DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever to get our food.
Yeah.
Well, now
Yeah.
everybody else did too, right?
Yep.
We
Yep.
used Uber or Lyft to get from point A to point B. Well, so did everybody else. Like, society changed. And like I said, for me, it changed for the better. So at that point, I actually left the community college because they shut the doors. Kids were not allowed to come on campus anymore. My job was now remote. I had to, only be at home. And I said, why am I doing this? Why am I? The whole point of working for me was to engage with other people and to get out of my house. Well, now I'm stuck back in the house again. So I
Mhm.
actually left the school and I moved back down to Florida. So back where I am right now, because what was important to me was having accessibility to everything. So where I live, and I know not every blind person or a person with low vision has these opportunities. I can literally walk to the grocery store, the pharmacy, my doctor, a restaurant, a place that has recreation, you name it. I have access to these things. And it's wonderful because I was able to position myself there. Again, I know a
How
lot of
did
people live
you
in rural environments, right? And they don't have access to those things.
how did you gain those skills? Was that something you figured out on your own, or you mentioned receiving services? Did you get resources from somewhere to learn about how to safely navigate and solve these problems?
Yes, I will give Division of Blind Services all the credit in the world that they started my low vision journey for me. Literally, somebody handed me a cane and I said, no, thank you. Right? An older adult who never had a mobility aid is all of a sudden thrust upon a white cane, and you're like, no, please, I don't want that. And the woman
Right.
said to me, it's not about wanting it, it's about needing it. And again, it's these moments in our journey where we have to question, who am I? Where am I going in my life? Who do I want to be when I grow up? Like, there's so many questions. This goes back to the introspection. She handed me the cane. I tried to hand it back. She handed it back to me and said, take it home. We'll talk later. Like, it was just that acceptance point of, even, I have to take this thing with me and I don't want to take
Mm.
it with me. And then I left it in the corner for months, by the way, and refused to use it. And
I
then
hear that
again,
a
it's
lot.
sort of that
Yeah.
one, right? That one day I just woke up and said, if somebody handed me a tool, I think I probably need it. Right?
It's yeah, it I'm thinking about the to link it to what we were talking about before, those getting in touch
Mhm.
with yourself and
Yes.
being with yourself, engaging with yourself. And it's like, if this cane is making me feel a way, what is that way? What am I feeling?
Right.
What is this? Somebody's telling me I need something that I don't want to need, and yet
Exactly.
I need it. And that is a complicated set of emotions. And then I start thinking, like, maybe the question is, am I strong enough to
Hmm.
receive this help? Like, I don't think
Correct.
needing a tool makes somebody weak. I think accepting what we need and using it is a sign of strength, not weakness. And so I
Absolutely.
see that. Yeah, that's remarkable.
Yeah. It
I also want
empowers
to just
independence, right? Oh, go ahead.
it empowers independence, and
Yes.
it says I am not the weak thing to do, not to place judgment on it, but would be to not try and to remain
Correct.
paralyzed. Whereas the cane
Correct.
is a thing that the cane is an opportunity to say, well, let me try.
Hmm.
Let me put literally my best foot forward.
Correct.
And whatever it may make other people think about me is irrelevant to
Hmm.
my relationship with myself. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Also,
And I'm
just
fiercely
quick,
independent. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
just a quick plug. We will have an episode all about Division of Blind Services and vocational rehabilitation. So that's early in the podcast. I don't know if it'll be out before or after this interview, but it will exist for anybody who wants to learn more about that. So, Department of Blind Services did a lot for you. Orientation, mobility. I imagine, like, maybe even skills for at home, perhaps. I know they offer that. I don't know if you received that, but like cooking and clothing and shopping and things of that nature. And career. You started your own business, which I think is a fantastic route for people with any disability, because we're saying I don't have to live in somebody else's world. I can make my own world in that sense, which I just
Exactly.
love. Yeah. So I think I understand that you're no longer working for your own business. So there must be more to that story.
Actually, with everything with me, it's complicated, right? So I actually am self-employed, but I
Okay.
do say, I talk about my employer as if they're actually my employer. I still am my own business, and
I
I've been
see.
my own
Okay.
business for many, many years. Right. So I have one client. They're a very big company. I still get to do all the great stuff I did when I was in my 20s and 30s. Again, just a little differently. So how
Yeah.
cool is this, that not only did I accept Division of Blind Services support for orientation and mobility, as you described with the cane, I did also take vocational rehabilitation, which is amazing, which gave me all the tools and resources I needed with assistive technology. I use my phone. The company I actually support, they actually sent me a computer because they have to for their network that is fully accessible. It's got a touch screen,
Mm.
it's got all the magnifiers. I can put all the screen readers on it if I need that. So that was really amazing. The other part about my independence and my mobility is back in 2022, I applied for a guide dog. And this was also another one of these big moments in life, right? Where take a deep breath and make a decision. Can the cane continue to support my lifestyle? I am a
Mm.
proficient cane user. However, I wanted more than proficiency. I wanted to continue to do all the things I love to do and not have the frustration of having less vision. So I did. And again, all of this is through network of other blind and low vision people, whether it's through
Hmm.
Division of Blind Services referrals or it's just friends that I've made over the last number of years that are just incredible human beings who inspire me every day, not because they're inspirational, not because they're, extraordinary. They're just regular people doing regular things, but they've taught me where these resources are. That's what makes them extraordinary, is that they know people who have resources, who have had success because of knowing that those resources exist. So yes, I have my guide
Yeah.
dog. She's from Leader Dogs for the Blind. I've had her 3 years now, and you want to talk about a life-changing experience. If you're going to lose your vision, I recommend to anybody who is comfortable maintaining a dog, because it is a lot of work, to seriously consider having that wonderful companion who gives you independent travel, companionship, and safety.
That's fantastic. And that's an
Yeah.
opportunity for another plug that we have another episode coming out either shortly before or shortly after this one, all about guide dogs from an expert. So that's if people are hearing this and wanting to learn more, there will be a resource there as well. That's great. I love hearing about how that the almost a graduation from or a progression from the cane to the guide dog. What did that open up for you? What did that transition, how did that impact your life?
Yeah, so to your point, the correlation is as vision lessens, we have to find additional tools, right? So I got to the point now where the vision's so low that, like I said, I wasn't comfortable. I wasn't feeling safe. I have a major road outside where I live, and it's 4 lanes. And to cross that street, because I need to cross the street to get to certain things, I decided that that was going to be the next step. Right. So I'm sorry, repeat the question one more time because I think I started to answer it and then I lost track.
When you shifted from the cane to the guide dog, what did
Hmm.
that open up for you? How did that impact your life?
Sure. So I went back to the things I loved. And this is
Mm.
what I really want the listeners to hear me say. I am not a different person. I just live differently. I'm still the same person I was before vision loss. I'm that person and more, right? This is kind of how I describe it. My dog is a plus, right? So I used to golf. I now golf. I golf with my guide dog. I used to trap shoot. I trap shoot still. I go places and do things that people think, why would a blind person golf? How can you enjoy that? Oh, it's one of the most enjoyable things in the world. Trap shooting? How do you see the clay flying in the air? And oh, by the way, I'm scared of guns. Well, again, we pick and choose the things that we enjoy. It doesn't have to be these things. These are my examples. What it did is it gave me the confidence to go back to the things that I loved. And then what I have found is adaptive sports for me is the greatest gift in the world, right? I can do the things I love, again, with the support of the community who understands that I have low vision and modifies the activities so that I can be successful, right? So instead of golfing by myself, excuse me, I golf with, a caddy who lines me up, explains how far the hole is for me. They'll step off. It's 26 steps. Or, the pin is 300 yards to the left, right? When you work with people who understand where you are in your life, right? They meet you where you're
Mm.
at. I always love that line. Please meet me where I'm at.
Yeah.
The guide dog brought that back for me. The guide dog got me out to restaurants, going to listen to music at live concerts, traveling. For your listeners, I just got home from a 25-day cruise. I mean, who does that, right? Like, who is confident to get on a cruise ship and spend a month wandering around, hoping you find the bathroom, the dining room, the gym, the theater? That dog, within one day, got me around that ship as if she had lived there for years. So that's what that dog gave me. She gave me my life that I had back plus more.
And it sounds like a big chunk of that went beyond exactly what the dog is there to do, but the dog's presence gave you a sense of confidence and purpose and accessibility. It wasn't about it
Yes.
wasn't always about exactly the skill that the dog brought to the table. It was about what the dog did for you emotionally.
Absolutely. Yeah, the dog is trained for navigation, right? She is a guide dog. It's a simple task. She does one thing. It's not so simple, by the way. right? If you think about it,
Mhm.
walking from point A to point B, whatever that is, whether it's a short distance, a curvy distance, downstairs, up an elevator, as escalator, through an airport, to think about what she does for me is incredible. And she's also a joy for others. So I just went to a conference yesterday with about 1,000 people. And as I was walking through that conference, confidently walking through that conference, by the way, which was dark, loud, congested, people were everywhere. I walked through that crowd so smoothly. And the person I was with was pointing out the fact to me that people were smiling. Right? She brings joy to
Mm.
others just with her presence. So my her presence in my life is wonderful, and she also brings joy around me and actually gives me access to people I probably wouldn't ever meet or know, because I have conversations all the time. Oh, tell me about your dog. Where is she from? What does she do for you? Where do you go? Like it's a conversation opener. I love that. I love that I meet all sorts of interesting people because my dog is a conversation starter.
Just to go back to what you said earlier and what we were talking about earlier, the life you're describing, the sports, the dog, the cruise, the conference, it is anything but isolated.
Exactly.
It is
I'm
anything but
out
isolated.
every day, all the time, hustling and bustling and doing this and that and going and going. Some people aren't like that though. Again, I always like to remind myself and
Hmm.
others that not everybody is a hustle bustle. There are lots of
Yeah,
people in the world that again are good with just sitting and reading a book or knitting or, like I said, playing video games or whatever it is that people love. But at least do that. Love the things you do and do them and have fun doing them.
right.
Again, if you can't see well to knit, there is blind knitting out there. And happy to find those resources, right, for you or help you. I'm going
Yeah,
to encourage everybody who's listening, pick something you love and go do it. And if you can't
yeah,
find how to do it yourself, there's people out there in the community that will help you find to do it.
yeah. So the message is not you can build a life that looks like Meredith. The message is you can build a life
Right.
that looks like whatever you want it to look like.
Correct, correct. Live your life. Don't try to live somebody else's life. Again, don't go on Facebook and see a Molly Burke, for example, who, if people don't know her, she's a low vision influencer. And Molly's all over the world and writing books and running around with her guide dog and doing this and that. That's Molly's life. You don't need Molly's life. You can live your life and
Yeah,
whatever you want
yeah.
to make your life. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, that sounds like an incredible summary message that I want to make space. If there's anything else before we wrap up that you want to communicate or maybe to summarize your message to our listeners.
Again, being blind is, I use the word complicated, right? Some people, quote unquote, struggle with it. Other people, it's a minor inconvenience. Everybody views it differently, and not to be punny, but everybody views it differently. It's a perspective, right? We live life with, like you said, expectations of society. And what I try to encourage people to say is don't worry what other people think, worry about what you think, and put in front of you things that you can achieve. Don't worry about who set the bar for you. Don't worry about, well, my parents want me to do this, or my husband or wife wants me to do this. Don't worry about what other people want you to do. Make a decision for yourself. Now, if you can't make decisions on your own, obviously you can engage someone, but make sure that person is a trusted advisor who sort of doesn't put their influence on you, right? They're an unbiased voice and they just get out of you where you want to go with your life. And if you're like me and you're that, again, crazy hustle bustle, let's go and have fun and get out there and do things, great. I couldn't be happier for you. And if you're the person, like I said, who just wants to chill and hang out and enjoy life, whatever that means to you, great. But just remember, I'm here for you. There are tons of other resources out there for you. Connect with me. I'll give Matthew, my contact information. If you want to reach out to me, I'm available all the time. Any mechanism, email, text message, Facebook, whatever. We're all here to help each other. We're all here to provide love, support, kindness, decency, respect, courtesy, any words and things that are missing in society today. Let's bring those back to each other. Let's be one big happy family. Let's be, humane and be a driving force of, again, love, kindness, and yeah, let's make low vision not even a thing. Let's just remove that. It doesn't matter if you can't see. Let's just keep going in the right direction. And yeah, that's my best advice. Let's go. Let's support each other.
That's so nourishing. We talked about toxicity earlier, but the message you're sending out is
Yes,
so nourishing. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
pleasure.
And
My
thank you for
pleasure.
your time. What strikes me most about Meredith's story is how she transformed the concept of agency itself, moving from a place where vision loss felt like it stripped away all her power to actively reclaiming control over her life's direction. Her insights about eating the elephant one bite at a time aren't just practical advice, it's a fundamental reframe about what recovery and adaptation actually look like in practice. I'm particularly moved by her distinction between being alone and being lonely, and how she discovered that a deep engagement with herself wasn't isolation, but rather the foundation for meaningful connections with others. Meredith's willingness to share her journey from those darkest 2 years through building an entrepreneurial career, developing expertise with adaptive sports, and traveling confidently with her guide dog offer our community both hope and concrete pathways forward. Her message that we don't need to live someone else's version of success, that we can define our own rich, fulfilling life with vision loss, is one that I hope resonates with everyone listening. Thank you, Meredith, for your openness, your wisdom, and your reminder that we're all here to support each other in this journey. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Insight Out. You're the reason this podcast exists, and we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voice message at speakpipe.com/insideoutpod. That's speakpipe.com/insightoutpod. INSIGHTOUTPOD. There, you can share your thoughts about today's conversation, suggest a topic for a future episode, or tell us about your experience living with vision loss. Again, that's speakpipe.com/insightoutpod. Insight Out is produced by Integral Mental Health Services, my private practice in Atlanta, Georgia, that offers psychotherapy for adults in Georgia and chronic illness and disability counseling nationwide. Visit us at integralmhs.com. And you can visit insideoutpod.com to catch up on all the episodes. You can also find us on social media using the handle @InsideOutPod. I hope you'll join me for the next episode of Inside Out. Subscribe now in your favorite podcast app to stay connected. Thanks again for listening.